I knew this would happen because it was leaked online.
Hashtag RIP Doctor Who.
That was definitely one of the most bizarre Doctor Who episodes of all time, and I mean that in the greatest way possible. I don't think anyone quite knew what to go in expecting, and I haven't even been on Twitter yet. I have absolutely no idea how this is going to have gone down with the fandom, but like, that was definitely something Doctor Who has never done before, which is exactly what Doctor Who should be doing. Experiment, try new things. It's difficult to immediately collect all of my thoughts on exactly what just happened. I mean, for everyone saying that I was in Lux, you've now been proven wrong. Well, in a way, you've got these guys who are effectively us. This line genuinely made me crack up so much.
I knew this would happen because it was leaked online.
Hashtag RIP Doctor Who.
Because the thing is, we did know it beforehand, kind of. I deliberately hadn't mentioned it in any videos, but even yesterday, they put out, I think it was Doctor Who magazine that leaked that these three actors were playing these three fans in the episode. It did leak online. Also, shout out to Mrs. Flood saying that the show's gonna end on May 24th.
Limited run only. Show ends May the 24th.
I can't lie, if Doctor Who does end up getting cancelled, that's the funniest way to go out, is having a character actually acknowledge it. And obviously I think it's just coincidence, because it's meant to be like, oh, I'm going to destroy the Doctor on May 24th. But with all the speculation about Disney not picking up the show, that would be so funny. But also I don't want Doctor Who to die. Anyway, enough rambly thoughts out of the way. Let's go chronologically through this episode, break it down, give you a review. Stay tuned to the end where I will give it a rating out of 10. Bear in mind, this is my initial reaction. I've only watched it once and a half, I skimmed through it to get a couple of clips to put in this review. So my thoughts may change by the time we come to record our podcast tomorrow. Big group review for the panel. Yeah, subscribe, notification bell, make sure you don't miss it. The start of the episode begins at the exact end point of last week's episode, and this is where the first maybe, I don't know, I'll need to rewatch it pacing wise, but is it a bit quick that Belinda was that happy to leave the TARDIS? Like last week, it was a very sort of serious and intense scene where she was very adamant she wanted to go home. And I did think initially when they go and get changed, it's a great sequence and it's very reminiscent of The Devil's Cord, but when they go and get changed, I did think, is this a little bit quick? But as the episode went on, I thought it was completely fine, because as soon as that Fisher device thing pings, Belinda's like, okay, let's go. And she's like, you're not actually going to investigate, are you? And then also, you've got to think about it like, obviously the show's not real, or is the show real, depending on how meta we want to get. But if you were in that position, even though I'd probably want to go home, if we just landed in the 1950s in America, you'd want to just have a look around. Do you know what I mean? And Belinda's like, okay, and I loved the lines about Scooby-Doo and Honey, I'm Velma. I've got to say, once again, the dialogue in this series is just brilliant. Ncuti and Varda's, deliveries of everything and the way Russell's written their characters. And I don't want to just slag off series 1 or season 1, but it feels a lot stronger, and I think it's probably because of the conflict between the two of them. They're still sort of bickering a bit, and it's when they're in the TARDIS and she's like, there's not a chance that I'm not going to have a look outside. And also, even then, the Doctor's still not manipulative, but he knows what he's doing. He's like, outside's 1955, but I guess we'll just go straight home or whatever. And it's like, obviously a human is going to want to explore. Also, did you notice they played, when it was talking about Belinda having to wait and not being able to get home immediately, they played The Girl Who Waited music from Series 5 with Amy, that little melody. I was about to sing it then. We're not breaking into song, this is not a Russell T Davies episode. What we're reviewing is this video isn't. Or is it? Depending on how meta we get, we'll get to that. I thought it's interesting to see as well that the 15th Doctor has clearly been around a while as the Doctor at this point, because last year in Dot and Bubble we saw how sort of surprised he was experiencing racism because of the colour of his skin.
For no one to see. 1952, that might be wise.
And now they're handling it in a way where the Doctor's got more experience of it. And I think it's good as well that they didn't just shy away from how racist America was. I was about to say was during that time period, as if they're not anymore. But how especially racist they were back then. I think Ncuti's performance was genuinely on top form. When he's not having to be bubbly and happy 24/7, his Doctor really, really shines. Like, I don't know what he kept like throwing his brow and looking a little bit more, I don't know what it was, but it was more doctory. Like, he looked a lot more serious, and also he seems a lot more in control. Like, compare this to the Devil's Cord. Obviously we'll come to talking about Lux and the God of Light and all that stuff in a moment, but when he hears the giggle,
What does that mean? Who is he?
compare that to the Devil's Cord reaction, then compare it to this episode. He didn't cry, he didn't whatever. He was scared, notably scared, and he was like, Belinda, get out of here. But it wasn't too much, and he did still seem in control. Like, it felt a lot more doctory. Also, I don't want to just keep praising the performances, but the performances are so good. Vara de Sethu as Belinda, both the dialogue and the character throughout, it's just great. I genuinely think she's gonna, if they continue on this trajectory, she is going to become one of my favourite companions of all time. I'm already, like I said it last week, but I kind of get Bill vibes from Series 10 with her, where she asks or says, like, she deconstructs the things that companions normally just go, oh, that's great, like last week with the timey-wimey, am I 6? Like, it reminded me of Bill, like, asking about the toilet as well. Like, Bill asked about the toilet in the TARDIS. Belinda asked about, like, oh, has he gone to use the toilet? Like, do you know what I mean? I love that sort of companion. I also really liked the moment where Tommy Lee's mum looks out at the window and sees the TARDIS, and there's that whole thing of, like, the TARDIS gives hope. And then the Doctor, I can't remember exactly what he says, I'll have to rewatch it, but he has like a mini Doctor speech, and it doesn't have to be a big shouting at all the aliens like at Stonehenge, just reassuring a missing person's mother that he's going to do the best he can to find her son. That was like a really, do you know what I mean? It staples him in as the Doctor. You understand the character, and you really do believe him. Like, you know, he's not always in control, but he feels like he's going to be able to handle the situation. I've got written down here in my notes as well, there was a line about, like, hope can change the world, and this is what I mean by the dialogue in this episode was popping off. Like, it didn't feel too sweet, too much. Like, the prime example of it being a little bit too sweet, I'd say, is in Space Babies, where the Doctor says, like, oh, we're different from anybody else, and we're all special, and it feels a little bit like it's too much. And there was a very similar line from Mr. Ringoding in this episode, actually, but obviously it was within the theming and the style of the Cuphead character. Let's get on to him and his introduction. Ta-da! That's probably one of the best scenes Doctor Who's delivered possibly ever. Just them walking down the theatre steps as Mr. Ringoding starts doing his singing, his dancing, whatever, and he says, like, don't make me laugh, and he keeps saying it. When he said it for like the 4th time, I was like, it's going to be the giggle, isn't it? And then I get called out later in the episode where that fan is like, yeah, well, obviously that was going to happen, because that's me right now. But I love how they're tying in all the gods with the Toymaker and the Pantheon and the giggle, and I wonder if we're going to see more of them in the future. I did think, though, that initial burst of Mr. Ringoding was the best he ever was in the episode. He was good throughout, but I think maybe he was a little underutilised as the plot went on. And I thought, we'll talk about the Whovians appearing scene in a minute, but I thought the pacing of the episode was really good, but then it almost just stops to allow that scene to happen, and then it carries back on, which is probably a somewhat intentional choice, because the whole thing's like deconstructing narratives and your typical, like, they even acknowledge, like, oh, it's Act 3, you've got to go and face down the bad guy. Like, they acknowledge it all within the story, but also that doesn't stop it from being a little bit of a pacing problem. I think the idea of the God of Light is a really cool idea. I loved the bit where like the moon beams down through the cinema and he comes to life. Like when he jumps out of the projection screen in the pre-title sequence, like that was just, like, it's such a good trailer shot. And it's also such memorable imagery, which is what Doctor Who has always been known for. Like, as if I watched that as a kid, that's something which definitely would have cemented itself in my brain. I think I could say that for the entire episode as well. It's so breaking formula, and I think it's good to do that sometimes. Like, I don't know why, but season 1, like, I always end up sounding like I'm slagging it off. I did enjoy season 1 quite a bit, apart from the finale. But season 1 was maybe a little bit too, like, there was no consistent tone, and it seemed to sort of flip between episodes, like what the tone of the show actually was. Whereas I can't quite describe why, but Robot Revolution, Lux, Feel, they're very different stories, but they're similar in tone. There feels like there's a very clear narrative through line. Maybe it's helped by the fact that this sort of driving motive for both the protagonists is getting Belinda home. I also thought the line, who am I saying cut to, was quite funny, and I wonder whether it'll have any relevance in the future of the show. As I said, Mrs. Flood's already openly acknowledging, like, oh, this show is going to end on May 24th and all of that. So it's almost like, how meta are they going to want to go? If you guys would like to see me make a video exploring the idea that they're in a TV show, that's a theory which is being thrown around the fandom and has been for quite some time. The more time goes on, the more it's like, maybe, because you've got the Doctor in Devil's Chords saying, oh, I thought that was non-diegetic. Then you've got the Doctor here saying, who am I saying cut to? And all of that. I mean, we already went incredibly meta in this episode, but it's how far would they be willing to push it? I thought the idea of, I think, was he called Reginald Pye? Mr. Reggie Pye, that guy, the cinema owner person, I thought him having to play the film to make Mr. Ringoding dance, to like buy them a bit of time, was quite a nice touch, and it was a fun sequence, having like the Doctor and Belinda run out of there, then they go to this guy, and I loved the stuff with his wife, like it gives him a really strong character motivation. Initially, though, I did think he was going to be a different sort of commentary. I was looking for meta aspects in this episode. And I don't think it's probably the intent, but it was my initial reading before he started talking about his wife. He says, like, oh, but the films make me so happy, when the Doctor's like, why don't you just let go of Mr. Ringoding or whatever? And he's like, oh, but the films make me so happy. And I wondered for a minute whether it was going to be like a commentary on fans that no longer like Doctor Who, the RIP Doctor Who fans, who do get a shout out in this episode, but if it was going to be a commentary on this thing that you did love, like, you can let it go if you don't love it anymore. Like, I thought that's where they were going, but then they talked about his wife, so that would have been a cool idea to explore. But also, I wonder whether that would have just garnered complaints of Russell saying fans should stop watching. Even Russell says don't watch anymore, which wouldn't have been the case. I did think, as good as Mr. Ringoding was, I would have preferred him as almost like a harbinger or a consequence of the god, because he didn't feel that god-like. That may be a weird complaint, but I think with the Toymaker, especially the Toymaker, it was terrifying. Like, you felt like they were in control, they knew what was going on, and it was like, oh, how are we going to defeat this guy? Maestro felt like that they felt very like in control and scary and like a proper threat for the Doctor. Now maybe this is counterintuitive because I was complaining about the Doctor crying when he meets Maestro. Maybe that's the reason that they felt more threatening. But I don't think it is, because even Sutekh as well, I mean, we've got precedent for Sutekh from like the 70s or whenever Pyramids of Mars was. But Mr. Ringoding felt like almost like a child god. Like, he didn't really know what was going on, and he seemed a little bit more fun and happy, which I guess is kind of the point, but the sinister side of the gods was slightly lost. I think up until he does the giggle laugh, he's quite threatening and very unnerving, but as the plot goes on, I don't know, he didn't feel all too evil. I did like a lot of the little quick jokes that we get as well, where like Mr. Ringoding says, oh, I should have learnt perspective, because he was initially so big when he came out of the screen, and now he's like a tiny little Mickey Mouse type character. I also liked Belinda pointing out, like, what exactly are you? You're blue, you've got the nose of a pig, are you supposed to be a man? Like, all of that was really, really funny. To be fair as well, Mr. Ringoding did feel like a maniacal threat, but more in the way of a tantruming child when he basically threatens Reginald. I think his name's Reginald Pye, the cinema owner. He threatens him with, like, he like clicks his fingers and there's fire or something, and he's basically just going, I will burn your wife, which that's quite scary. I loved the line as well. I think it might be my standout line of the episode where he goes, I'm a two-dimensional character, you can't expect backstory. Like, it's just, the whole thing is so meta, and I wonder if in a way it's going to get complaints of being too meta. I think there were points where I was almost like, oh, we're going into this territory. But after coming out of the episode, I think it's good. It is, because this episode, no matter whether it's positive or negative, will get people talking. Like, this is undoubtedly going to be one that is remembered for a very, very long time to come because of how much it breaks convention and formula, while also still being very Doctor Who. Then we get the Doctor and Belinda being sucked into the sequence, which I'm surprised how late on in the episode this happened. It was almost towards the midpoint, which I didn't expect at all. I thought, like, we'd be going quick, but I don't know, it took quite a while, because I feel like that's almost like the main inciting incident of the plot. You've got a couple of inciting incidents, but I think, yeah, in my head that was going to be the main thing, but it wasn't. It was later on in the episode. Almost a bit of a shame not to linger in the animation realm a little bit longer. Like, we almost got that whole sequence in the trailer beforehand, and I think there's probably going to be a lot of people that were expecting to see the Doctor and Belinda in, like, Scooby-Doo style animation for longer than they did. However, I wasn't too bothered because the scene we did get was absolutely hilarious and just really clever. I loved, like, the meta idea of they get literal depth by creating character depth. I did think a little bit though, is it pirating his own work where the Doctor doesn't tell Martha about Gallifrey because he's like, oh, I just wanted it to be happy and nice, and he doesn't tell Belinda, but then it's not lingered on too much, and I really liked the depth as well, because it wasn't just the Doctor who received depth from lying about Gallifrey, it was Belinda, because you see that she gets more anxious and nervous when she realises Gallifrey's gone, because there is no help other than the Doctor, and the fact that she says to him, like, I don't believe you can get me home safe, and they were becoming more 3D, like, it's a very fun and clever idea. There were other funny lines where, like, Belinda says, oh, we're still inside the film, I hate it when they do that. I thought, yeah, it was quite a fun idea. I just wish we'd seen more, like, when they were pulling the frames down and stuff and directly breaking the fourth wall. I thought it's quite fun, but I feel like we could have explored it a little more. Like, go flash through more shows, more things. I mean, they did these trailers for, like, BBC iPlayer where they went through a bunch of different BBC shows. And I suppose with the Disney budget and Disney licensing and stuff, I don't know how possible it is, but it would have been quite funny if you actually saw them in different styles of different shows, like running across in the background to get somewhere as Mr. Ringoding chases them. I think maybe that would have added a little bit more threat, but then I don't know if you necessarily needed it. But I think a proper chase from Mr. Ringoding through various cartoons or various different forms of media was maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity, because you still get the same plot, you just add like a bit of action in there, and maybe each time they jump through a different cartoon they have to confess rather than it just being, do you know what I mean? I'm starting to waffle now, but I think that was maybe a little bit missed opportunity. Like, the idea itself is so solid and was used so well, it's almost a shame to not see it spread over a two-part story. Like, you could have had the cliffhanger be them come out and see the fans in real life. Like, that would have got people talking for a whole week to find out how this episode gets resolved. And then we get to the infamous moment, which is going to get people talking. It's going to get fans either I have no idea what the reaction to this episode is going to be as well. I guess I'll find out as soon as I've finished this video, because I'll go onto the dreaded app that is Twitter. But we have the Doctor and Belinda enter a room of Doctor Who fans, decked out in scarf, fez, etc. I think Russell was, for all the slack I've given him for writing younger characters, He did write the fans incredibly well. There were maybe one or two slightly cringy moments, but also that they're Doctor Who fans. I can say it. I'm one of you guys. Sometimes we're quite cringe. But there were a couple of moments where I was just like, ooh, they're Doctor Who fans. I'm joking, of course. Doctor Who fans aren't losers. Look, if people can get really excited and happy by watching people play football and kicking a ball around, and they cry and scream and cheer at that, Doctor Who fans can cry and scream and cheer at stories that are actually good and not just men running around kicking a ball. So you know what? Shout out to Doctor Who fans. Everyone is a fan of something, okay? I don't know why I've gone on a little speech here, but everyone's a fan of something. Whether you cry at Doctor Who or you cry at football, all of it's okay. I loved the bit where they were literally just sat down. Like, I don't know if it's too meta. I need to rewatch this episode, but where the Doctor was sat on the sofa and he was like, "So, we're in a TV show that you guys watch. What's your favourite episode?" And they're like, "Blink."
I've seen every single episode.
But I'm so real. I'm completely real. I mean,
And you can tell as well, because it's obviously written by Russell, and him and Stephen Moffat have like their mutual friendship, mutual banter going on. The line where one of them says like, "Oh, my favourite," they all say my favourite episode's Blink. Belinda's like, "What happens in it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the one where you can't blink," and she's just like, riveting. I thought that was really funny, and I loved as well because it's just true of Doctor Who fans. Everyone's got their, like, of that generation, of their age group, everyone has like a favourite from like the Tennant era or the Smith era, and they're just like, "Oh no, but what about this episode? What about this episode?" No, it's that one, that's my favourite. Like, all of that was really funny, and as I say, I loved the leaked online line. Like, that was just like Russell. He knows.
I knew this would happen because it was leaked online.
Hashtag RIP Doctor Who.
I thought, though, as fun as this scene was, it did kind of slow the pacing right to a halt, which, as I said earlier, is probably a little bit intentional, but also, like, did it need to cut? Like, they fully slammed on the brakes to have this little scene, and it was funny, and it does deconstruct conventions, but like, it still felt a bit jarring. I also liked the idea of them having to acknowledge that they will fade away, they will stop existing once the Doctor leaves, because they're the fiction, which obviously in the post-credit scene they're not the fiction, but yeah, it was a nice little loop. I think them escaping and leaving the film realm was maybe a little bit quick and maybe a little bit easy. Like, I don't know. I didn't know what I'd preferred to have happened, but I felt like it was almost here and done. Like, it was quite quick. But then, also, the episode was only 43 minutes long. It's not much, but add in the extra 2 or 3 minutes that we need. Because parts of it felt really quick, then quite slow, then really quick. Like, there was a definite, somewhat of a pacing problem. Not too bad. I did, however, really enjoy, once they're back in the real world, Mr. Ringoding's plan of using the Doctor's regenerative abilities to form himself a body, which is exactly what Omega does in Doctor Who Echo's End, our fan film. Go and check it out. But I thought that was a really nice touch, and I also think it's interesting to note that they're drawing attention to bi-generation as a thing. Is that gonna play into the future of the show or this season? I think it might, because it felt very direct. They were like, "Oh yes, this bit left over from my bi-generation." He didn't just say he has regenerative abilities, he was like, bi-generation, that they were getting that in there. Also, I forgot to mention, I love the line about we're 30 minutes in, it's time for the third act. Actually, I think I did mention it way back, but that being the transition into getting them there. Mr. Ringoding's plan was good. It was very creepy and weird when he was stealing the regeneration energy. It did feel very reminiscent of Maestro, like the film reels, like the weird musical notes from last episode coming, wrapping up the Doctor, and effectively tying him up while the evil plan of doom happens. I really liked the payoff of the cinema owner having to like let go of his deceased wife and then let all the films explode and blow up the cinema. All of that was really nice. I thought Belinda was very good in those scenes as well, where she has to figure out like, oh, it's daylight, that'll stop him, whatever. And I thought as well it was a nice touch that I think this is, thinking about it, yeah, it's the most justified God death there's Bin. The Toymaker being defeated by Catch I've always thought was a little bit silly. Maestro, the Devil's Cord, it makes sense, but it felt a bit underwhelming in the episode. And then you get to Sutek. Let's not even talk about Sutek, but this time I thought it was quite nice. It wasn't just your usual death. Like, it was, like Belinda says, he literally became a god. He sort of evaporates, keeps going, light. I loved seeing him stretch out of the earth, then across space, then across the galaxy. Like, all of that was really nicely done, and it did feel very original and very new, because it would be very easy to fall into the trap of, like, feeling like a copy of the Devil's Cord, because there were a lot of elements that were very similar. But no, it was good. And I liked as well, we got a little bit of a everybody lives moment at the end where the Returned were returned out of the cinema. The people that Mr. Ringoding took at the start, they were let back out. I think though, as nice as Mr. Ringoding's ending was, it's maybe why he didn't feel so threatening, because he kind of didn't want to be alive. Like, I don't know, he seemed very at peace with just going off and disintegrating into light. I also thought, is the Doctor not injured? Did he just steal the regeneration energy? Or was that just the excess bi-generation energy? How does that work? But then the story concludes. The Doctor and Belinda leave, ready to go home, but we know they're not going to make it home. They're going to go to whatever creepy episode is happening next week. I have mentioned it, but the Mrs. Flood cameo I thought was really nice as well. She's always there, but the Doctor can't see her. I reckon she's got to be the one that's manipulating the TARDIS, but I've got theory videos on this coming out soon, so make sure you're subscribed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Overall, initially, I think I'm going to rate this episode 8, 7, 7.5, 7.5 towards 8 out of 10. I think I enjoyed it as much as last week. This one was a lot more experimental, but I liked almost being on the edge of my seat, not quite knowing where it was going. That was quite nice. It's by no means a perfect episode, but it's a very solid one. I think I'm going to give it a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10, which maybe that's generous. I don't know. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Tune into our podcast in a couple of days' time, and goodbye.
Don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Confused Adipose YouTube channel.
I will destroy you! She's not seen a single episode.
No, I've watched your episodes.
Keep these sonic screwdrivers.
What else am I saying about the film? Don't watch this one.